Well, this will take us to the final session for the weekend. And as you see, I've entitled it Redeeming STEAM. And STEAM, by the way, you've heard of STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. I add arts to it. So that's why STEAM, redeeming science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics for God's glory and man's benefit. I had several conversations during the break that I want to address one big question it seems to pop up everywhere I go, and that is the whole issue of the flat earth. And we chuckle. Ironically, I didn't know anything about it until I was on orbit the last time in 2016. And I was, through the help of somebody on the ground, I was posting on social media, I was posting photography and just making comments and whatnot. And I didn't spend any time or have direct access to the comments, but Mission Control would occasionally send up a few representative comments that were being posted. And in those comments was this reference of the Earth is flat. And so ironically, I'm orbiting the Earth 16 times a day for 6 months when I first hear this. And so I saw the comment, a couple of them, and I thought, oh, this is satire. People are just, it's a joke. And it wasn't until I returned to the planet in 2016 and I started engaging a little bit more online that I realized, no, this is a serious movement. And best I can tell in modern times anyway, it kind of started in about 2014. So it's a relatively modern phenomena. And I thought, well, at first it's innocent enough. It's not a central issue. Maybe they'll get over it or whatnot. And I would get the question everywhere I went. And initially I tried to engage logically, tried to understand what the basis was and engage logically in a discussion until I finally came to the conclusion there's no logic behind it. So I was wasting my time trying to logically engage in conversation about it. And then more time went by and I gradually became convicted that this is not a secondary issue. This is a serious issue. And it's serious in this way. It is and I try to be gentle with this, but it's serious in that it is a sort of a cultic behavior with heretical seeds. And if somebody goes there, then you're susceptible to go anywhere because you're completely detached from truth. You're completely detached from the truth of the Bible, which is contrary to the interpretations of some of the figurative passages that they draw from. But you're also detached from practical truth. And if you get sucked into that rabbit trail, you are susceptible to go almost anywhere. Somebody gave me a book a couple years ago. It's about this thing. I can't remember the name of it. It has something to do with the lie of the world. And it's an advocacy for a flat earth. And I didn't read the whole thing, I will admit that, but I did scan the whole thing, and I ended up taking a big Sharpie and writing lunacy on the cover. It is very serious, very dangerous. So if anybody's getting caught up in that, I encourage you to reconsider it. I call it the authority of YouTube. And that's really what it is. There's a new word in the vocabulary called influencers. And they're out there, and YouTube is one of the primary platforms that influencers reside, and they're motivated to build following because that's how they make their money and whatnot. So, and if you're sensational, sometimes the more sensational you are, the bigger draw you have. And you get people to come. Whether they're serious following you or not, they come. So it's driven with those kinds of motivations. But don't get caught up in that. It's very susceptible. I understand that when we went through the period of COVID and the social inversion that I referenced last night, since then, There is a search for truth because we've lost confidence in the institutions that we gave confidence to in recent years. The government, the institutions of science, the consensus of science, the authority of scientists, the media, politicians, and whatnot. We've largely lost our confidence in it. So there is a genuine search for truth. I contend it's a great opportunity for the gospel. We are the most equipped with the truth, but we have to submit to it. And it's related to what I talked about in the last session. We are susceptible to arrogance. We still struggle with the pride within. We need to remain humble. We need to grow in humility before our Creator, who is our Redeemer, and He has revealed Himself in the truth of Scripture. So I wanted to address that because I know it's we chuckle, we laugh about it, but it is a serious issue that's out there, and I'm pretty confident even present in the room here. So, and we'll likely get back into it in Q&A, and that's okay too. Redeeming steam. I want to review biblical presuppositions, and we've talked about these things, but I want to kind of summarize them for you. This comes from the Scripture. What are our biblical presuppositions? God has intelligibly provisioned and ordered His creation in vast and amazing ways. I contend largely yet undiscovered and untapped. So the task of subduing God's provisioned and ordered creation for our good is still a work in progress. And you future scientists, you future engineers, you future technology developers have that work in front of you. But we can presuppose it. The God's work of creation is provisioned in the ordering that we've been talking about. God governs the universe comprehensively with perfect coherence. That's His work of sustaining His creation. Sustaining power, which we saw in the last session, is the work of Christ. In Him all things cohere. In Him all things are upheld through the unfolding time of God's redemptive plan. Creation is continually and utterly dependent on its Creator. Our existence, our very existence, we're completely and utterly dependent upon our Creator for all of the things required for our habitation, but for our very existence. And we are uniquely created, right? Each of us. We're uniquely positioned in the unfolding of redemptive history. Albeit but a vapor in time. You know, we can think of ourselves as insignificant, but yet chosen by in the mystery of God's wondrous works of grace and mercy, those of us that are in Christ, He chose us specifically, personally, called us to Himself, and called us to live out the Christian life in our time and place and circumstance in life. Called uniquely in time, place, and circumstance, and uniquely called in our offices of life. I love to use the word office. We are called into offices of life. Some of us bear the office of husband. Some of you bear the office of wife. Many of us bear the office of parent with the responsibility to raise the next generation. Some of us might reside in an office of carpenter or electrician or plumber, as I said. They are offices. God has called us to them with duties and responsibilities to fulfill in that office. That's how we ought to consider all the different aspects of our life. We are completely and utterly dependent upon our Creator in the execution of that calling. We've been given a remarkable ability to search out and develop and utilize that ordered provision, bearing the image of the Creator. The dominion mandate, as I've rehearsed many times, includes the work of science, technology, engineering. I would include arts, mathematics, discovering the mathematical ordering of all things. That's included in the subduing of creation. As I've said, the Christian faith and the biblical worldview provide both the presuppositions that we've rehearsed and the moral sanction for that work. And that work includes the arts. And our ultimate motivation is to answer the call to give witness to our Creator, who has revealed himself in the person of Jesus Christ, for the glory of God and for the good of those around us, to make a contribution to the community that we live in and are called to. He's our meditation. Let me go back to that. Psalm 111, verse 2. Great are the works of the Lord, studied by all who delight in them. Again, as I mentioned last night, we read that verse the first time, we might think it's a call to study, a command to study, a call and a command to delight. But they're not commands. They are descriptors. The works of God are studied works. They are studied works by delighting believers. We are to grow in the comprehension of the works of God, his work of creation, his work of provisioning his creation, his work of sustaining his creation, his work of providential care. And all of that, as I said a couple times, can only be understood because his work of redemption has been present in our lives. That's when our eyes are open to the greater truths of the works of God, and we can grow in motivation of studying them and delighting in them because they are the works of our Creator. I read this quote last night. I'll repeat it again for those that weren't here. Stephen Charnock was a Puritan, wrote that 2-volume set called The Existence and Attributes of God, which is very rich, a very worthwhile study. It's probably in the bookstore. My guess is upstairs. I love this quote. He speaks of what the themes that we've been talking about. All things in the world. Everything. He's talking about everything around us. Everything we take for granted. If we just look, we see this. One way or another, they center in the usefulness for mankind. Some to feed him, some to clothe him, some to delight him, some to instruct him, some to exercise his wit, and others his strength. Just a powerful quote as we've considered these things. Now let me give you some contemporary quotes that affirm what we've been talking about. Here's one. Anybody hear of the name John Lennox? Okay. He's pretty, you'll find him pretty common on YouTube and other platforms. He's come to America many times over the years. He's not traveling anymore. He lives in the UK, Oxford. He's got a history at Oxford as a mathematician, a brilliant apologist, just a kind, gentle man. We've gotten to know him personally. Here's one of his quotes. It is the existence of a creator that gives to science its fundamental intellectual justification. I had a conversation at the beginning of the break about somebody's parent, elderly parent who worked in science and can't believe her child is buying into the Christian faith, because of the authority of science that individual has experienced. I would challenge the thinking. It's a blind faith to think that everything happened by chance over time. Everything ordered itself by chance over time. That's a blind, unsubstantiated faith. We have a faith based on objective evidence. We have a faith based on objective revelation. God has revealed himself. Everything we see has intelligence behind it. I'm sure we'll get into that as well in the Q&A. This worldview provides the fundamental intellectual justification for all things STEAM. Or John Polkinghorne, he's also in Great Britain, a scientist, and now I think he might be an Anglican priest of all things. But he wrote this: because we are creatures made in the divine image, then it is entirely understandable that there is an order in the universe that is deeply accessible to our minds. Again, affirming what I said last night and again this morning, we have bearing the image of God. We are given a capacity to, one, be curious, to be motivated to go explore, and in the exploration to make discoveries, and in the discoveries to try out things, to experiment, to execute the scientific process, and then to make discoveries in the experiments that maybe will answer a question that, or bring up new questions that can produce something that is useful to us, that then we put into work in terms of technology development. That is a key understanding to scientific endeavor, bearing the image of God. We've been given that capacity by our Creator. Here's another one. Rebecca McLaughlin, she's an author and a PhD in literature, and she has a theology background as well. A quote from her: if a rational God made the universe and endowed humans with an intelligence that echoed his own, perhaps the image-bearing creatures would be able to discern his laws. There's nothing, I mean, that's a rational conclusion, right? And we see that evidence throughout. We have discovered historically what we call the laws of nature. We have discovered, we didn't invent mathematical understanding or modeling or whatnot. We discovered the mathematical ordering of all things. They've been discovered over time. They were there imposed by the Creator. Or this one, Nancy Pearcey, actually one of my favorite authors in regard to science and Scripture. The early scientists, and she's talking about some of those that we reviewed last night from the age of science. The early scientists did not argue that the world was lawfully ordered and therefore there must be a rational God. By the way, we often make that argument, right? Well, look at the evidence, therefore there must be a God. No, rather, the presupposition, they argued there was a rational God, and therefore, because this rational God exists, the world must be lawfully ordered. That's very important, right? In terms of the logic of our thinking. God has revealed himself. He is who he is as he has revealed himself with all of his attributes. Therefore, the world is logically ordered and precisely ordered and contingent, dependent upon the lawgiver, laws imposed on creation as we reviewed this morning. Here's a great illustration of this. I call this, it could be argued, the greatest technological achievement of humanity in all of history. When you consider the scope of it, and the story of the International Space Station is largely untold. It hasn't been carried well by the media. But when you consider the complexity of this thing, related to questions, another set of questions I got in the break is, don't you worry about oxygen and everything you need to live? Well, yeah, of course we do. We everything in the detail of the design of the International Space Station duplicates what God has put in his created order on Earth, which is our habitation. He created it to be inhabited, as is revealed to us in Isaiah and in practical life. We have everything we need here to live and to thrive, and all of that has to be duplicated artificially in a spacecraft. So we have a healthy atmosphere. We have a way to maintain the atmosphere. And all of that. And not only that to begin with, but we assembled this thing piece by piece with 37 space shuttle flights and about 40 Russian rocket launches to put it together from 1998 till 2011. And since the fall of 2000, we've had continuous human presence in space, to include a few Canadians, right? and many Russians, many Americans, many Japanese, and Europeans. We've had continuous human presence in space for going on 26 years. And it's not been without challenges. There's been lots of technical failures and challenges along the way that have had to been dealt with. We've had to integrate this thing from different cultures, different histories, particularly the Western NASA culture of space exploration integrated with the Soviet and now the Russian history of technology development and space exploration, and work together when we have completely different languages and a history that made us enemies. In fact, the primary motivation for doing this was not space exploration, it was geopolitical concerns with the fall of the Soviet Union. And we gained the political support to build the International Space Station, not because politicians wanted space exploration, but because of non-proliferation concerns of nuclear and chemical weapon systems with the fall of the Soviet Union, not wanting those things to go to places like Iraq and Iran and North Korea. So there's even a bigger geopolitical motivation behind it. You put all that together, and the duration that we've flown this thing, and largely the success in the building of it, and the integrating of it, and the troubleshooting of it for so many years, it's an amazing achievement. Through our biblical worldview, we see that God has richly provisioned his creation and given us an amazing ability. But yet, it's still just a limited ability, right? Ultimately, we are still bankrupt apart from the grace of God, which we're going to go into much more detail tomorrow morning, the significance of that, the significance of the gospel. But it's a great illustration to bring in a biblical understanding to what we've been talking about. There's a lawfulness of nature and a stunning provision in that order, and we've been given the ability to search it out and exploit it again. So I'm leading up to telling you about a vision. If you've been upstairs at all, you saw that backdrop. And I'm going to talk about a new initiative that was started a couple of years ago. And the presupposition is really everything and more that we've been talking about last night and today. But these areas of STEAM, science, technology, engineering, arts, and math, are elements of human activity in the exercise and fulfillment of the dominion mandate. Again, we've stated this, where God blessed those who were created in his image and charged them to fruitfulness in subduing his richly provisioned creation. So the mission of this vision is to redeem that for the glory of God, redeem that worldview, to strengthen believers in addressing this apparent conflict, the perception of conflict, and to equip us with a biblical worldview for all things STEAM, understood through the lens of Scripture. We call it the P&W Science and Wonder Center. So I'm going to do a little advertisement and transition to this vision. The subtitle, A Space-Themed Destination for Exploration and Discovery. Who here has been to the Museum of the Bible in Washington, D.C.? A few of you. Who's been to the Ark Encounter and Creation Museum in Kentucky? More of you. Who's been to Branson, Missouri? Branson, Missouri has a place called Time Traveler. Yeah, it's an immersive entertainment venue where you see in an immersive environment stories of the Bible. I've not been there. I've been to the Museum of the Bible, and we've been several times to the Ark and Creation Museum. But it's in that family of venues, and it's complementary to those venues. That's the vision. Strategically located in the Pacific Northwest, and we're looking at land that's just 15, 20 minutes from where we live. So Washington State, easy access with the Portland Airport, on the foothills of Mount St. Helens, which draws a lot of attention anyway, especially among believers and non-believers, right? Believers that want to look at the evidence of Mount St. Helens and the recovery, that's related to the account of creation, that helps us to understand God's work of creation, and it doesn't have to take millions of years or billions of years. The STEAM theme complements the creation and flood focus at the Ark Encounter and the Creation Museum. It complements the focus on the history of the Bible at the Museum of the Bible in Washington, D.C. As far as I know, there's no place in the world that's big, that's significant, that addresses STEAM through a biblical worldview. So this vision is intended to fill a great need, again, to strengthen the church. It is a stewardship of the unique experiences that the Lord has given me. And as I've stated already, I think I entered my career at NASA with this profound sense that I needed to steward the anticipated experiences that the Lord was going to give me. Never did I dream it would be this kind of thing, but this is what the team and I are endeavoring to pursue. Stewarding the open doors of the Lord. This has really been a series of open doors to make this possible. And of course, I'm completely dependent upon His continuing opening doors. And as I've alluded to a couple of times already, the cultural timing. These are my 4 pillars, my 4 strategic pillars that I try to articulate in terms of the rationale for this new center. The 4th one is the cultural timing. There's a unique sense and search for truth right now because the institutions that have been authoritative in society over recent years have been damaged, right? Nobody knows who to believe or what to believe anymore. So what a great opportunity for the gospel. What a great opportunity to present a biblical worldview and understanding to all things, in this case, all things STEAM. So those are the 4 strategic pillars. Those first 3 actually were suggested to me by Ken Ham a couple years ago when I rehearsed this vision or this dream, if you will, with him. He quickly said, I think it's a good idea, and this is why. 1, 2, 3. And recently I've added the 4th one, the cultural timing. Right now it's envisioned to be a 125,000 square foot facility. So the Creation Museum itself is about 75,000 square feet. In their history, when they opened it up, as soon as they opened, they realized it was too small. And they had an outdoor patio entrance area that immediately they went into phase 2 to enclose to gain that floor space. There's another facility outside of Nashville, Tennessee. It's called, actually borrowed a little bit of idea from the name, but it's called the Science Museum and Wonder Center, founded by David Reeves, a young creationist, and it's about 100,000 square feet. We decided here recently that we wanted to expand the size of this to include a conference capability with what did I say, 1,500 seat conference auditorium, so that we have that capability right in phase 1. So that's why we've gotten to 125,000 square feet. Intended to be a national destination, and here I'm in Canada, so I'll call it an international destination, and a regional resource for the local population. The low-hanging fruit, obviously, would be the homeschool population, which grew tremendously after the years of COVID and since. Because we're in that area of the Pacific Northwest, which has a reputation for long, cold, rainy winters, we can't depend upon tourist traffic year-round, so it needs to be designed to be a place where the local population has recurring use as well. And of course, conference capability gives us a lot of potential for that, just to make it viable. Right in the I-5 corridor in the western part of the U.S., obviously strategically located, near Mount St. Helens, which is a draw for a lot of folks. And this is very important, restricted governance. What does that mean? We will accept no government money because that comes with obligations. And we want to theologically govern this in a way that a future board of directors or a future executive leadership cannot compromise the mission to maintain that strict biblical worldview. So it's being set up with those constraints with a very narrow focus to avoid mission drift. The core team now includes Answers in Genesis. We have direct collaboration with them. In fact, I suggested in our first meeting and subsequent meetings with Ken Ham, I said, hey, do you see this potentially as just another AIG affiliate in the future? And he said, yeah. And I said, okay, we're going to preserve that option because there's a great strength in that. They obviously have a very strong network of resources already. They've got an established clientele or people that go and use that resource for the strengthening of the church. So there's a great potential there. Got an architectural firm. They're believers. They're based in Chicago. I was introduced to them about a year ago or so, and I got on a call with them. I told them the vision. They said, hey, we want to be on board. And we'll volunteer our time. We're so excited about this. We don't want to pass it up. So they, pro bono, they worked with us for months. Last early fall, they sent 5 men from Chicago and Seattle to spend a whole day where we just brainstormed the vision. We went and drove some potential properties. So they've been an early part of the team. And now we're actually paying for their services, but a very key part of the early design phase. I've got an engineering firm in Vancouver, Washington, that's working with us. Archive Studios is a company in Kentucky, and one of the founders of this, he actually moonlights in this business. He's his job title is something like the Director of Exhibit Development for the Creation Museum. So he works for AIG in a primary role, but he has this moonlighting job. And he's volunteering his time to lead the effort for the exhibit development, which is unique, because we're going to try to cover, it's not going to be a space place. It'll have a space theme behind it for obvious reasons, I think. But we're going to cover the broad spectrum of science and technology. So there's a lot of work to do to develop those exhibits. It's going to be the very high end in terms of technology. We are going to utilize AI. We're not going to be afraid of it. I know, and I anticipate that coming up in Q&A after lunch. But we want to engage with it. It's got some great utility. The latest technology, you think LED screens, which are amazing nowadays, to be instruments to help fulfill the mission of this center. I think probably the leading general contractor in Vancouver, Washington, Robertson and Olson. And I've met with the president, sat down. He's also a believer. He's very known for his generosity and his support of one project is the largest Christian school in the area. They're doing a big expansion. They also did a lot of development of the Columbia River waterfront in Vancouver. So they're on board, and they've given me permission to advertise them as part of the team, even before we're not paying them anything right now. So the team is coming together. IT, the Fast Tech Solutions has donated all their resources to build the IT. So we've got a website and everything behind the website. They've done that pro bono, and they plan on volunteering their services for the life and the development of this facility. There's another IT company that wants to also donate their time, primarily in the development of the IT that will empower and enable the exhibits that go on, which of course is significant work. And then I got a research firm based in Phoenix. They're currently working with us pro bono as well. So you can see people believe in this vision and they want to support it. And then the focus group is helping us raise the capital, which is not insignificant. Right now it's baselined at $155 million. Here's a conception of sort of a campus layout of this with the main building. I won't go into a lot of details, but plan on, obviously the main building, there'll be outdoor space. Obviously you need the parking, there'll be conference space. There will be space for laboratory work or ongoing academic work, classrooms, that kind of thing. Also planning on some retail space with complementary businesses that will, for example, you want to be there when the doors open at 9 o'clock. Well, let's, as a family, let's go have breakfast at this restaurant right outside the gate. And so that we're right there and ready to go in when they open because we want to take advantage of the day's program. And those retail businesses will be designed to provide another revenue stream to support the core. Obviously, to make this work, something this caliber, you have to really do it with business sense to provide the capital just to support the operation and be able to minimize the admission cost, for example. Mount St. Helens be a big draw. Here's a early design of the front of it. By the way, you ever hear of a Foucault pendulum? You ever gone to a museum or whatnot where they have this giant pendulum hanging? Might be a 200 or 300 pound steel ball that's hanging on a cable. It might be 60 or 75 feet long, and it's got like on the order of a 5-second period going back and forth. I was really inspired when I was about 14 years old. We went to the Museum of Science and Industry in Chicago. And I looked at this thing, and it went way up in the multi-story lobby of that museum. And you watch that thing go back and forth. And like I said, it took 4 or 5 seconds to go back and forth. And then around, they had a kind of a compass rose around it. It looked like a compass rose. And wherever that thing was swinging to, it had a time stamp, and it kept time. So during the day, it precessed around like this, and it kept the time very precisely. And it's a function of the latitude that the pendulum is located, and it's a direct result of the physics of being on a rotating sphere of the earth. That was amazing to me as a 14-year-old. And I went home and I tried to speculate, okay, how does this thing work? And I drew up a theory of how it might work at the equator, how it might work at the North Pole, and then how it was a function of the latitude that it was located. And I wrote up this theory. I showed it to my science teacher, and he disagreed with me, and he had his own theory. It turned out I was right, he was wrong. And I only know this because after my parents passed away a few years ago, my brother was going through all the closets and stuff in the homestead in Wisconsin, and he discovered a journal that I had recorded all of this. I had forgotten about it. So you can imagine just another example of the wondrous nature of God's providence, right? In the details of life. Their seeds were sown as a child, as a 14-year-old, that certainly was an illustration of my God-given interest in math and science. And then decades in the future, now it becomes an illustration to drive a vision that the Lord has given me. So we're going to have a Foucault pendulum in this destination. I want to share that experience. How can you help? Well, again, this is a little bit of an advertisement. The first thing I would ask is commit this to prayer. This will not happen unless the Lord wants it to happen. And we as believers, we need to be strengthened in this theme. And this is an instrument that the Lord continues to open doors to steward. And we need to commit this to prayer for wisdom and discernment in the stewardship of the opportunity and the process, that the resources are delivered by God to enable this, and that the right team continue to come together to enable this. So that would be my primary request of you and suggestion how you can help. Furthermore, you can sign up for a mailing list on the website. I'm going to put a QR code up here in a couple seconds here that will take you to a survey. And if you could go take that survey just to answer a few questions, it won't take long. That'll help us as well to inform the potential clientele that's out there in the world as we design this. So please take our survey. And of course, if you want to become a supporter, you're certainly encouraged to do so. So there's the survey. And normally, this is the first time I've done this, by the way. I gave a presentation at the Ark Encounter that included this, but it was designed for that. It was telling about the vision. I spent an hour giving the background. This was more of a conference for the broader theme of STEAM through a worldview. But this is the first time I felt like I'm going into a marketing role, right, in a conference setting. But I think interacting with you over the last couple of days, I think you will be very interested in this, and I presume your support. So with that, I thank you very much. Yeah.